Good evening, everyone. This is DH Thorne coming at you live on a beautiful Thursday solstice evening. Let me just take a moment and make sure audio is good on every platform. I should be currently streaming both on Rumble and YouTube. I think I figured out a better way to do it, but it should be working juicy. So let me know if you guys can hear me on both platforms. That would be really fucking cool. So anyway, how's everybody doing today? It is technically a solstice tonight. And well, today actually, not tonight. Pretty much lasts all day, right? I didn't really do much for it. My wife and I actually went to a museum on Long Island. We have quite a few of them, but we went to Cradle of Aviation today, and that was a lot of fun. Kind of pays to go there every now and then. They like change the layout of the place and put some new stuff in. Some other stuff's there year round, like the lunar lander and some other things, but it's a lot of fun to go. It gives me something to do. Roberto's telling me that YouTube sounds good. Thank you very much, Roberto. Hopefully someone on Rumble will let me know if Rumble is also working out for everyone's satisfaction, but it probably is. If it's working on the one, it should be working on both, but someone will let me know shortly, I'm sure. All right, so don't have a lot prepared, but I figured we would talk about things. Sounds good? Okay. So I figured we'd talk about various things that are going on. And, there's a lot going on as usual. We've sort of entered into a period of time. Let me preface this. Let me get into the mood, into character here a little bit. For those of you who aren't aware, the next period of time is a time of great revelation, and it will be continuing right into the 30s and beyond. But the biggest, most pivotal period is now. Now till a lot of people like me are saying like the mid, early 2030s, like 2032, 33. And that makes sense because some people even suggest that technically year zero is not now. I should say year zero shouldn't be what we think it is, that it started 33 years late, and there's some other theories about how we're missing, centuries from our calendar or added centuries or whatever. That's not really what I'm into tonight, but I thought I'd let you guys know it is interesting that a lot of people are predicting sort of an end to this revelatory period right around the 33-year mark. Of course, 33 is a very important number. It's the same number as supposedly the vertebrae. Of course, there's a little variation there, but we won't get into that. It's the number 33 is sacred to a lot of traditions. Jesus supposedly was crucified at 33. The Masons, everybody's got a thing for 33, and for good reason, because 33, 369, right? And when you take 3, you've got 3. You've got 2 3s, that's 6. You've got 3 times 3, that's 9. So there is, there's things to the number 33, obviously. But I don't get really deep into numerology at the moment, so it's not really my thing. But it is something to be aware of, that we are going through a period where there's a lot of revelation going on. And honestly, if you can't see that, I would really encourage you to start looking a little bit closer at things. I don't just mean politically. I mean the full spectrum. We're looking at full spectrum revelation and disclosure, okay? And that doesn't mean we're going to get everything, obviously. We're not going to get everything that we would want. You're not going to find out every detail. In fact, this period of years, there's no way you're going to find out that much, humanity just can't take the revelation of what's coming on. Humanity simply, as a general rule, we're not ready for the big leagues, okay? As I have been sort of following this path the last few years, it's dawning on me where we have been steered wrong throughout our entire history by certain people that like to keep us in a depraved and degenerate state to make us easier to control. They make sure that we do not have any kind of connection to not only physical nature around us, the mother nature, shall we say, the living world, which our physical forms are derived from, because this planet is a living thing. Just because it's filled with rock and stuff doesn't mean that there's no intelligence to it or conscious there or anything like that. It simply means that it's almost like the bones, if you will, of the planet. You know, you have plenty of materials in your physical body that we wouldn't consider alive specifically. And in fact, none of the fundamental material, according to materialism, is alive. Living things are an emergent property of dead things, according to the idiots of materialism, which I say that with as much contempt as I can muster. And I don't mean all of them, obviously. The average person is just sort of deluded into it and indoctrinated into it. But the people who basically indoctrinated the world with this stuff, set this in motion, they didn't just take materiality as something important. You know, we always have the classical debate between Plato and Aristotle, right? You know, the idealist versus the materialist. And that's not entirely true either, because Aristotle was not at all blind to the spirit, you know, or things that were not necessarily of physical nature. He was not a hard materialist. That emerged only a short while ago, really, the Victorian era, basically, 1800s or so, 1700s, 1800s. We are living in a period of history that is it's an aberration of both human understanding, human relationship with nature, but also our relationship with our own nature, our own reality, our own true nature. And we've been living in an aberrant era that is absolutely, couldn't get more delusional than it is now. It's pretty much at peak critical idiocy and critical madness. It doesn't fit any ancient wisdom. It does not fit any modern wisdom. Modern philosophers are going, wait a minute, all of this doesn't make sense. None of these things that scientists are telling us, especially when scientists moonlight as philosophers, which is ridiculous when they do that, because they're really bad at it most of the time. Philosophers make much better scientists on average and I mean that. I mean a high level scientist. Obviously some guy just doing test tube stuff is a different story. That's a process thing. But the people who really think deeply about reality, materialistic scientists are way behind the curve. They're great at creating machines and tools. That's fine. They're great at phenomenology. They're not good at all about fundamentals, about metaphysics. They don't get it. They've been indoctrinated into a hard materialistic perspective. And so therefore it's kind of dead. It's useless in the higher sense. There is absolutely nothing in philosophy that says that materialism has to be fundamental. In fact, materialism can easily function as a process of idealism, and idealism can function easily as just an appearance of non-duality. It's not required to have a physicalist perspective at all. These people are lost, they're demented, they've lost their way, and they want you to be lost and demented, because there is an effort by certain people, we'll call them people because I don't necessarily know if they are or not, but they don't want you to know your true nature, and they don't want you to know the nature of reality, because they don't want you to know what they know, because knowledge is power, and they don't want you to have that power. And it's not power necessarily over others, although it can translate to that. It is personal power. It is power of your own, shall we say, sovereign understanding. And they don't want that. They don't want you to know what you are, or have access to any belief system or model of reality that allows you to stand up and say, no, I am not going to do what you tell me, because I don't have to. They want you to believe that we live in a dead, soulless, empty universe with no life in it except on this little bubble of Earth. They don't want you to know the truth at all. And they had us all fooled. They had me fooled for several years. You know, when I was younger, I thought it was absurd what they tell us, but I accepted it eventually. As I got older, the propaganda gets to you, you know, and you start to believe, well, I guess hard materialism's true. And that's what they got us into. So we are going through, not just in the political realm or the socio-political realm, which I will talk about tonight a little bit, of course, but we're talking about everything. I can't stress enough, for the last several months of my live streams, especially as I've been getting my groove back, after losing mom and everything, it kind of knocked me for a loop, and it's been a little difficult for me to get that back. But as I'm getting that groove back, it's just, I can't stress enough how much they've lied to you. The more research you do, the more you realize how little truth that you've been given, how little accurate information you've been given, especially with regard to anything that might set you free. They don't want you to know about, we'll call them ETs, interplanetary beings. They don't want you to know much about that. And that's a very interesting topic right now, because if you're paying attention like I am, you're noticing that all of a sudden they're starting to say, hey, we're finding what looks like could be Dyson swarms or Dyson spheres all over the place. You had, what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson, which is one of the biggest shills for big, big physicalism, big globalist materialism. He's one of the biggest shills on the planet for these people. He's one of the most disingenuous operators I've ever seen in the environment of science, science communication. He's one of the most disingenuous people I've ever seen. He's got an agenda. I don't trust him at all. So screw him. But even he's talking about the question. Of course, they're saying, well, we don't think it's aliens because it could just be a gas cloud or something. And I'm here to tell you that chances are, because of what I understand, I believe is true about these subjects, I think you don't need a Dyson swarm. I think the idea of collecting the sun's energy for the purposes of generating power, because there's just no other way to do it, I think that's backwards. I think that what we are discovering, if you do the deep dive rabbit hole stuff, is you find out that what we call 0-point energy, that's the main, let's call it 0-point energy, okay, etheric energy. That is something that can be developed with Victorian technology. Like literally it's steampunk level technology. Or Tesla was not living in a modern world filled with computers and things, as well, not as we would understand them. He wasn't living in a world where we needed all this, and he was working with stuff that was tapping into that to a degree. And between free energy, 0-point energy, all of these different things, they're harder than any of us can figure out, because we don't have the primer or the primer. We don't have the basic theory, correctly understood. And anyone who does, whenever they develop it, they disappear. The government comes along and they just disappear, or they get completely ruined. Their lives get ruined and they shut up. So it's pretty clear to me that these things are absolutely true and real. And that really means that you don't need a Dyson swarm or a Dyson sphere to generate type 1, type 2 power levels. You don't need that at all. All you need is this technology. In fact, you wouldn't even necessarily want that much, because you could easily just power everything you want with a small device. You don't need some big power collector. Now, that doesn't mean there's no reason to do a Dyson sphere or a Dyson swarm. There are absolutely reasons to do those things. In fact, you may not, for whatever reason, want to tap into 0-point energy. You may simply want the elegant solution of natural sunlight warming your satellites. You might have, for example, maybe you're using advanced energy technology to create electrogravitic technology that allows for artificial gravity, and now you have these satellites orbiting these big sheets of material that have things growing on them, and they've got like a dome or something over them, or however they're keeping the atmosphere in, and they might just let the sun in to just do its job, and it's just elegant that way, right? You don't need to tap into 0-point and then heat up the colony or anything like that. Just let the sun do it, and it's probably healthier for a lot of the things that would live there. That's just a speculative guess, but absolutely. Yeah, and that's true. Robert says a gas cloud could be an alien. Absolutely right. I'm not saying that doesn't mean it's an alien structure or not. I'm saying I don't necessarily think it's a Dyson swarm. I think a Dyson swarm or a Dyson sphere, if I am correct about these other things, isn't really a priority for a species to create unless they haven't discovered that. So if they haven't discovered 0-point energy, of course, they might do that. But that's not everything. There was a Harvard study that just came out the other day, and now they're telling us, well, it's even more likely that they're walking among us and living on the moon. Like, what the fuck is this? Where is this? Harvard saying this? So they are, if you're paying attention like I am, if your finger's in the air, you licked your finger and you're testing the winds and you're keeping your eye on what's going on, it's obvious what's going on. It's completely obvious that a new boss is in town, a new sheriff is taken over, and they are bubbling up the information through the firmament of our world, through the base layer, okay, through conspiracy theories, urban myths, urban legends, these channels that, I don't trust them all, but they all put out interesting information. You have Gaia TV, you have Fifth Kind, you have all these things, you have just all these people that are just bringing all this to light. Graham Hancock, and you have Joe Rogan, all them. Now, I want to caution you guys, by the way, don't necessarily assume that they're good guys. Don't assume that these people are truth tellers. There is such a thing as a gray hat, shall we say. If there are white hats, that means people with whether they do a good job or not, they have a benevolent intention. And then you have black hats who have a malevolent intention. It's the age-old, binary, the duality of good and evil, right? Well, there's gray hats too. There are those who they straddle the fence. They play both sides, perhaps, or maybe they're a double agent of some sort. Maybe they're like Alex Jones, in my opinion, who was a honeypot, in my opinion. I don't believe that he was really forthcoming and sincere in his patriotism or his desire. Maybe he was forthcoming in his desire to see the globalists be destroyed. Maybe he's got a vendetta against them. Maybe he was an unwitting or unwilling pawn. That is possible. But I do believe he was a honeypot, whether it was his own idea or he was in on it or he was just used by these people, blackmailed or something. All of those are possible, but I do not trust him as far as I could throw him, which wouldn't be very far because he's a big guy. But I don't trust him. I've never been able to read him clearly. I should say I've been able to read him. What I read, though, is don't trust me. I've never been able to figure out which specific side of the fence he truly lands on, but I do not trust him at all. Same with David Icke, don't trust him at all. So essentially, the next few years, so the next few years are going to be a time of great revelation, and people like me, there's a lot of people like me out there now. All of a sudden, now that I'm doing some more research on topics, I'm realizing there are a lot of people who think exactly the same kinds of things I do. I mean, they have their own nuance and variation, but I mean, we're in the same wavelength, right? We are anti-globalist, New World Order assholes. We're anti that. We're pro-freedom, we're pro-sovereignty. We understand that we have not quite evolved beyond the need for nationalism yet, that full-blown globalist unification, the way they were doing it was wrong. They were trying to create a kind of a monoculture because it's a lot easier to administer to a monoculture. So what is a monoculture? Is basically a civilization that shares the same story, right? The same culture. It's a monoculture. So that's why, I don't know if you've noticed, anywhere you go on the planet, there's always the same stores now. Like, you can go to the third world, get off the airplane, there's a fucking McDonald's waiting for you. That should tell you everything you need to know. They're trying to create a monoculture that they can control. When you have a monoculture, you have everybody with a similar everything, right? A similar foundation of ideas, of entertainment, moral values, social values. And these people wanted that because then it's easier to control your thinking with this cultural bullshit. In other words, they're putting blinders on the planet and giving you all the same culture, or as similar as possible. That form of globalism is tyranny through and through. Now, a form of united world that is made up of different states. Like the United States of America, for example, was originally conceived in that way to allow for localized differences under a similar framework of constitutional republic, form of government, right? So they wanted to have all of these states fall under a similar constitutional limitation while allowing all these little local people to have their own identities and ideas, right? So we share certain values, but those values are pretty universal. They're usually golden rule oriented. That's the point of like the American Constitution. Pretty damn good, right? I mean, there's some things I might add, but it's pretty fucking good. And it's mainly golden rule oriented, live and let live, do unto others what you would want done to you, and don't mandate people's behavior beyond limiting what the government can do to you. And when the government makes laws, it's supposed to create laws that protect your rights. That's the point of those amendments and things, and the Bill of Rights. That's the whole point. Okay, now every other country around the world does not have a constitution like ours. They're always very flimsy and flexible and plenty of room to, they say you have the right to freedom of speech until we say you don't, and bullshit like that. And so you cannot have a globalist society based on a monoculture that has been imposed upon people and call it free. You just can't. That kind of globalism doesn't work. But if you have nations that are allowed to operate whatever way they want within a certain framework, then you can have a globalist or global order that is both nationalist, meaning state, in other words, small state, individualized states, sovereign states, that agree to a certain partnership, a certain agreement. They agree to cooperate and to behave a certain way so that there is cooperation rather than war and everything else. We are too big for war. We're not like little tiny babies anymore that can't destroy a planet when we're mad at each other. We've reached a point where we can destroy all life on this planet and beyond. If you believe what certain people say about atomic and nuclear weapons creating scalar weapons and so on, we can knock out or disrupt the navigation of, friendly ET craft, all that kind of stuff. If you believe that, then you recognize we can't keep going. We can't keep going. But that doesn't mean that you can't have individual nations that can compete or cooperate in a competitive way, or even have small skirmishes. But the point is you get them to cooperate at that larger scale without being the same system. And I think that that's where we're going to end up on the other side of this far enough down the road. I think you're going to get a bumpy ass ride from now for the next X years. Different people have different estimations. I think a safe bet is to say that by the early 2030s, we will have a pretty good idea of where we're headed if we haven't already finished the main transition. We have a pretty good idea. We'll probably have maybe not full disclosure, but we'll probably have full revelation of aliens. It'll probably be like we can't hide. Like you'll probably have people literally like, cell phoning the things and walking around. It's probably going to reach something like that. It's probably going to be that in your face. It's going to be undeniable. It will be part of the coming shift that's going on. I do believe that. Whether it's blue beam or it's real, I mean, my understanding, if you believe certain people, somewhere between 80 or more % of sightings are man-made stuff, reverse engineered stuff, and only somewhere between 10 and 20% are supposedly authentic. In other words, made by beings beyond this world, whether it's another plane or another dimension or another timeline or another planet. That's up to you, because there's a lot of room there for all of that to be possible. Okay, so we're not gonna split the hairs and say it's definitely this or that. We're gonna present the possibilities and then we're gonna weigh them. I think most of it's probably going to be interplanetary or from the moon or interstellar, whatever. But to say that they're not interdimensional, I think is foolish too, because according to my research and childhood understanding, They did not travel through space. It was more like Star Trek presents it, but it's actually closer to spiritual, because when you understand what the fundamental nature of reality is, these vessels, they're not merging with physical quantum fields or something. What we call quantum fields are just fluctuations of etheric, nature. And etheric nature is just an appearance of consciousness, what we call consciousness. It's not consciousness in the specific. It's what we call consciousness. All right. So they literally go through 0 point, which is consciousness. So from the material perspective that we live in, consciousness is 0 point. That's the 0 point singularity that's dimensionless. It's dimensionless. It's the 10th or 11th dimension, if you like the 10 or 11 dimensional multiverse theory of quantum and string theory. If you like that, then it would be the 0 or 1st and the 10th or 11th, depending upon which numbering system you like. So we'll say 1st and 11th. It's either the 1 or 11th dimension. Really, it's both, because every single 0 point, so every single singularity in space-time, not that singularities probably exist in space-time. We call them singularities, like black holes. I don't know if they really are or not. There's a lot of speculation. They might not be a singularity. They might just be a very small, dense point, but it might not be an absolute point, you see. That might be 0 point. So in other words, they condense down into 0 point. They're emergent from 0 point. So they return from and emerge from. So they return to and emerge from 0 point. That's how you get your torus, right? Your toroidal fields. That's a possibility. I don't know, but that's some of the theories that I'm into. But going back to what I was saying, every single point in three-dimensional space-time holographic experience, every single what we think of as a point in space or time is actually the same point in the 11th dimension. It's the 11th dimensional singularity in which all things exist. It's very complicated to imagine. You have to have the ability to imagine reality in ways that are not 1D, 2D, 3D, or so on. You have to have the ability to, at least, if you can't visualize, understand it, to at least comprehend it from a relationship perspective, which is ultimately all anything is a kind of relationship thing. So from the bottom up perspective, the absolute looks like a dimensionless point. It looks like the same point everywhere. Every single point in space-time is that same point. It's just a different perspective of it, and that's why it looks the way it looks. Okay, that's just one way, and this fits in that whole toroidal emanative etheric theory, because it's sort of like you're on the skin of this hyperdimensional toroid, and you're always, as consciousness, you're always introspective, you're always looking within. So no matter where you're looking that looks without, you're actually looking within the ultimate self. That's why there's nothing back here. All right, that's a funny way of putting it. That's not serious. If you had 360 view, you could see that. But my point is, the concept of like inner space, inner space, outer space, they're both irrelevant. They're the same thing. So what you see out there is also the center of consciousness, right? So 0 point, or the 11th dimension, and the 0 or 1st dimension are the same thing. This is something that quantum and string theory, they never connected those two dots. If they connected those two dots, if they recognized that the 1st dimension and the 11th, or the 0 and the 10th, are the same thing, they probably would have had a breakthrough. That's my speculation, because I don't know for sure, but that's how I understand it at the moment. Where I'm getting that from, I'll let you guys guess. So whether that's 100% true or just works for the model, that's the model that I'm applying. Now, when you're talking about from the absolute perspective, from the perspective of the 11th or 0 dimension or 1st dimension, materiality is completely illusory. It's just what is in consciousness. It's just relatable experiences, relativistic experiences. That's all it is. There is no space or time. Those are just a coordinate system for a mental hologram that is generated, or shall we say, always exists, because time doesn't exist. Time isn't real as we understand it. So there is no generated events. There is simply the full pleroma of potential, which is scanned by consciousness that looks like time. So this is tough for people to understand. I'm going to skip it. I'm going to go very short. It's like reading a book or watching a movie. All of the information of the book, all of the information in the movie is stored on a single object, which is then run through a projector, or your eyes scan it, and then the film appears on the screen, or your head movies play because you're watching the movie. In the almost exact same way, that is how we are comprehending. Sorry, I got to fix something here. That's how we're comprehending the concept of time. So time is not an absolute objective thing. And if time is not real, that means space is not real. And if space is not real, it's all illusory. Okay. So this is why I try to encourage people, if you're looking at the universe from this bottom up only perspective, you're missing the other half of the story. When you start looking at it from the idealist or mentalist perspective, that's the other side of the story, but it's also not the whole story. Because you have to understand that there is the absolute, then there is what is usually referred to as Maya in Indian metaphysics. You could also call it primordial agnosis, which would be primordial ignorance, a veiling. It's a veiling of the absolute or the one. So this is veiled, and it is veiled through what we would refer, we can call it ignorance, because it's not a veiling of like a physical object getting in the way. That's a metaphor. In fact, this is a short tangent. It's one of the things that really bothers me about modern esotericism and all of these things, modern New Age tripe. It's still very superficial, and it's still too literal. Like a lot of you guys, you know, are like Christians. You're taking the Bible literally, and that's not to say that you can't, because there's value in that too, I suppose. But that's not the fundamental truth. That is the extrapolated, this is what you can do with the truth. So when people are telling me like, oh, reality is this, reality is that, and they're making these objective statements, they're coming from the Christianized, bottom up, taking the myth as literal perspective. Then there are other layers, right? So most New Age metaphysics is like Christianity. It's taking something as literal, which is meant to be in many cases metaphor or symbolic. For example, I have people who will be like, oh, you've got these chakras in your body and they're made out of lotus petal shaped things. No, they're not. No, they're not. That's symbolic. And if you don't know that, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You shouldn't be teaching anything. Don't tell me that chakras are these lotus petal fan things. That is a symbolic representation. Okay? It's meant to symbolize what they do. Oh, this chakra has this many lotus petal flowers. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's a symbolic representation of something that has much deeper meaning. Okay? Taking these things too literally is the stumbling block. It's the blind that the elite want you to believe in. The elite don't mind that you believe in New Age metaphysics. They put a lot of that out there. Okay? They put a lot of that out there so you don't get the truth. And I come through like, oh, I know the truth. No, I don't know the whole truth, but I know you're being lied to, and I know what you're being lied to about. So, the vast majority of what you've been taught to believe is generally a lie or based on a lie somewhere. It's flawed information meant to keep you enslaved. Because if you knew just how simple it is, they couldn't keep us enslaved. If everybody on this planet, or the majority anyway, understood just how much, not even what the truth was, just how much we've been lied to, that alone would set them free. Because then they would start exploring everything that they've been told not to. Go take science classes. There's something they will drill into your head, and that is I had it in my head till it thermodynamics. They insist, perpetual motion's impossible. There's no way there's no way to get at the energy in empty space. It's off limits. It's this. They're lying to you. They want to make sure you don't even question. They drill that into you just like they drill evolution into you. Not that evolution's a bad theory. It's correct. It's correct as theories go. It is a process, and it's fairly accurate in the way it's described, but that's not the origin of humanity. You see, so they want to drill evolution into you as this absolute thing that cannot be questioned. Because if you question it, if you look at the human genome, if you look at the human development path that we are saying happened, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense with observation. It's starting to break down. The whole out of Africa theory has been debunked. You can't say that humanity really came from Africa. We don't know where humanity came from an empirical sense. We don't know. We don't know where the missing link is. We've never actually found a missing link. We found like pieces of missing links, but we've never found a missing link. We don't know. And every theory that might point to something that makes more sense is often debunked in a way that's disingenuous. I don't know the full story of the origin of humanity, but I will tell you that it has to involve help from some other entities. It has to. It just has to. It's too much of our history, too much of our lore, of our mythology tells us that. And of course, the modern view is like, well, they just couldn't figure it out, so they made up stories. You see how much they respect the mind of the ancient? They think the ancients were stupid. They think that the ancients were irrational. That's not the case at all. They just didn't necessarily have the sophisticated tools we have. That doesn't mean they were irrational or couldn't think clearly. What's interesting, actually, what's more interesting isn't the idea that they might be wrong or right. It's the fact that no matter where you go on the planet, there's a lot of overlap and similarity and resonance, especially if you get through the cultural barriers and start interpreting what they're saying through a proper lens. You realize that most ancient cultures agreed on a lot. They just said it differently, or they laid out their model a little differently, or they emphasized other things more than others. It is safe to say, again, we live in an aberrant age. This is not how it's supposed to be. Materialism is a model of the phenomenal world, and it's a valid model. That's true. You can use all the quantum language you want. That's not wrong in the sense that it works or not. Of course it works. It is a working model, and it's functional, and it gets you computers, and it gets you spacecraft, and it gets you all kinds of shit. But it doesn't get you infinite free energy. It doesn't get you anti-gravity. It doesn't get you across space-time. It doesn't give you telepathy or telekinesis or any of the other things that are possible. It doesn't give you a spirit world. It just gives you dead matter that somehow life emerges from that. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. It doesn't hold up. It's an effort. The time is coming when these people are going to have to go the same way that the old, doctors, the witch doctors of the dark ages went, getting leeches and shit to drain your vital essences. They're going to have to go that way. They have to. They're holding us back now. These ideologues, these dogmatists, these people who are telling you there's no way that these things can be true, they have to be shuffled out of the way gently, because a lot of them are innocent people. They're not doing the wrong thing. But then some of them, according to rumor, you have supposedly, allegedly, Stephen Hawking has been to Epstein Island and liked midgets, trying to jump and write on blackboards. I'm not kidding. Look it up. I don't know if it's been debunked finally, but for a while there, that was taken as gospel. If that's even remotely true, then you can finally understand how science can lie to you, because they're all at the top. A lot of them are corrupt. Okay. So what I'm getting at in this lengthy intro is, for the next period of time, we should all be we can be speculating and talking, but we all need to stop this. This is what it was. It absolutely was this. And what I mean by that is, when we're being specific about it. A lot of people like to just, you know, talk about these dogmatic ideas that they've heard, that they believe, that they've never proven to themselves. They've never actually, it functions, but it's not necessarily how it really is. And this is, you know, all flat earth people, a lot of new age people that are very superficial. It's all love and light, false light type stuff. Like, you know, sage your house all the time. Those people, I ignore them. They don't know what they're talking about. They have no idea. Then you have people like me who have a little bit of knowledge, and then we have to speculate, and we have to go off of our own wisdom and intelligence to get the rest. We probably get a decent chunk of things right, but we're probably wrong about a lot. I know what I'm right about. I know I'm right about the non-duality stuff, at least in terms of, I know that what I'm saying can lead you to the same realizations I've had, and those realizations, they are resilient to questioning. You can't, some of the things I would teach you, you cannot disprove. You can try, but you will only end up proving what I'm saying is true. So their reality, that's non-duality on some form, in some expression. You call it monism, non-duality, some form of that is absolutely true or otherwise aligned with the truth. So that one's a given. There's a lot that they're telling you, though, that is meant to pull you away from that fact. It's a lot of stuff. They want you in a dualistic mindset. They want you in a materialistic mindset so they can control you. All right, let's see. Having a little trouble with the chat here. I think I'm missing a whole bunch of chats. Let me see. Let me pop open a window here that I'm screwing up something. You know what's weird? There's like pretty much no chit chat on Rumble. In fact, nobody's really watching on Rumble tonight, I'm noticing. Actually, there's only like 2 people on Rumble. I've heard somebody, did somebody mention in the chat that Rumble's giving them problems? Is it my stream or is it Rumble itself? Because I'm watching the stream on my other thing. It seems fine. Are you guys having trouble with anybody who's watching it? If you are, let me know, because it's got to be on their end, because it's smooth as silk on mine. So I don't know what's going on. All right. So for the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of revelations going on. There's going to be a lot of new information coming out, and it's going to be both conspiracy theories about exposing, you know, the Epstein stuff, exposing the lies. And right now we're still in a dangerous time where most of us still have to bite our tongue a little bit, because we're going to get censored and we're going to get shadow banned, because that's just got to be part of the process. Okay. But there's going to come a time when I won't have to do that. There's going to come a time when you're going to see a lot of things reinstated that were taken away. So you're going to see that as we go forward. But right now it's not happening. Right now we're still in the crucible phase. And so what am I getting at? I am dying to move forward. I am dying to start what I think I'm going to end up doing, but we've got to get through this revelatory period first, because it's too chaotic out there. The absolute truth in a lot of these areas, we can only speculate based on evidence, and we can get a pretty good picture, like a pretty good overall mural, right? We can get, like, we can start putting the puzzle together. We know what the puzzle looks like. We have an idea what it is. We know what its subject is. We don't know every detail, but we have a pretty good idea that this picture looks something like this. It's going to be, you know, non-duality, spirituality, aliens, technology, all of it's going to end up being, you know, corruption, the New World Order, the Cabal, the Hydra, the Zionist World Order, the Chinese, the this and that. It's all going to be there, okay? It's going to be a big picture, and we're only going to get as much of it as we can handle. But it's going to be a lot clearer coming out soon. And it's already starting. Again, I started this stream talking about, you suddenly have Neil the Ass Tyson talking about Dyson spheres. And you've got, you know, like, have we found them? Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. They're trying to normalize these ideas for the normies. I can't watch these things because they give me so much cringe. And we don't think aliens exist. It's like, fuck you. The very next video is a fucking UFO. Like, how crazy are these scientists right now? Like, how much are they sitting there going, like, are we really going to keep saying that we don't think they're real? Meanwhile, the government's coming out and saying we think they're real. Guys, what's going on? What is this disconnect? Why are the scientists still going, well, we have no evidence of aliens? Meanwhile, it's like, woo, 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 just like buzz their head. Looking like the little alien dude from what, the Flintstones, you know, like buzz. And they're saying, we have no evidence of aliens. None. I get it. You haven't empirically proven it. But it's pretty safe to fucking say that they're there, bro. At this point, you're in denial if you're not saying that it's probably aliens. Or alien, or like recovered alien stuff we've remade. I think it's absurd at this point for anybody. They're just in denial or they're just not informed. So I'm done. I don't really care. Like I watch a lot of science videos because I'm into it. Believe me, I love that shit. But I've started to filter out the stuff that it's like, I know this is propaganda or it's just ignorance. They're not ready to be Scientists are conservative. You have to understand they're not politically conservative, but they are conservative in terms of change. They don't like to go out on a limb and say these are aliens because then when they're wrong, they look stupid, they lose their funding, etc. So they have to act like we don't know, they're not out there. We don't think they're out there, but bleep bloop bloop. We can't really admit it because if we do, we could lose our funding and lose our. Scientists have a lot of egg on their face right now, and it's going to get worse for them. And I'm looking forward to when the first big name scientists finally just rip the Band-Aid off and say, yes, we do believe that's what these are, but we still can't prove it. So we're They've done this in the past with certain things. Dark energy. They don't know what the fuck it is, but they still call it dark energy. Dark matter. They don't know what the fuck it is, but they still call it like it's real. They don't have a problem telling you that we believe that dark energy and dark matter are ruling this universe, but there's no such thing as aliens. That's enough for me to just end the fucking stream. How stupid do you think I am? Why am I animated about this? Because they had me, I was stupid. I was in denial. D.H. Thorne was wrong. I admit it. I was in denial. I remember somebody asked in a live stream like 3 years ago, Thorne, what do you think about these aliens? Oh, it's bullshit. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they're not here. That's not them. Those things you're seeing are not them. I still stand by that a lot, maybe not everything, but a lot of what you see that they're saying are aliens are usually human-made reproduction stuff. And when I say human, I mean Terran. I don't mean, because there's humans out there, I'm convinced. There's humans everywhere, probably. There's probably humans all over the solar system and shit. Even if they're just because they came from here and they're exploring in a breakaway civilization. They're out there. They have to be. But this whole idea that they're not there, I am fed up with scientists saying there's no such thing as UFOs or aliens or UAPs. They're not alien things. I get it. They could be drones and stuff. But that's what we're saying. Where did they get that from? You think they developed it in 100 years? They just figured out how to do all this from nothing. Now, obviously, like I said, some of this stuff is easy to do, but some of that stuff isn't. Some of that stuff we wouldn't have figured out in less than 50 or 100 years. Just not going to happen. We might have the principles. We might have some prototypes, but some of that stuff is clearly, we had to have some help figuring it out. A source to reverse engineer. Some tips given by somebody. Like, have you tried spinning mercury really fast? I'm not saying it's made out of mercury, by the way, but that's what they said. The Vimanas were made out of mercury. The engines were made out of mercury, spinning. So, I'm fed up with being lied to, and I know a lot of you guys are too. I know a lot of you guys recognize that pretty much everything you see on television, if you live in front page reality, you're not one of my tribe. I feel bad for you. I pity you. I have compassion for you. And I hope that someday you'll wake up and join us in reality. But the reality is not what you see on television. It's not what you see on the news. It's not what you see on Twitter. It's not even what you see in half of these, oh, hi, Kitty. In half of these, alt news sources or people like me. But we're a lot closer, or at least we're aiming in the right general direction. People like me are aiming in the right direction. People like CNN are telling you to look the other way. So we could argue like, oh, I don't know all the answers. I don't know the truth, but I do know that they're liars And whatever they say, at least look in the opposite direction. If they're telling you that there is no such thing as spirit and God and aliens and shit, all of that shit is on the table. All of it. That's all I'm saying. All right, let me get some chats going now that I've ranted for a little bit. So my point is that people like me, instead of telling you for sure what it is or what it isn't, I want to help guide you guys. Like, this is probably what I'm going to end up doing as we go forward. I'm probably going to start going. There's a lot of people out there that want to tell you it's the Pleiadians, it's this and that. We don't know. Okay. I don't trust a lot of those people that are like, oh, this is, what is it, Aurora Ray and all this. I don't trust them. I'm not saying they're lying or they're wrong. I'm saying I don't trust them. I don't know. I can't quite say that they're lying because some of the things they're saying line up exactly with my experiences. Like I tell people, I had things happen when I was a teenager that is perfectly aligned with this whole star seed and Pleiadian, and it's all happening. Totally aligns with that. I'm perfectly willing to believe in it, but I don't know if I trust these sources. So rather than saying, oh, the Pleiadians are coming, we're gonna have solar flashes and all of this stuff, chill out. Chill out. Right now, you're watching a show of epic proportions. And instead of trying to assert your personal dogma, which is all you have, and I'm saying this to every single person chatting, all of you who are saying it's this, it's that, or it's, you know, it's the Anunnaki, or it's this, chill out, because objectively speaking, you don't know what you're talking about. None of us do yet. All we have is our myths and legends. You could say we call them the Anunnaki, but that is not objectively what they are, because Anunnaki was a title. It meant the powerful ones, the sky gods, the sky beings. An, which is, you know, sky. Anunnaki. So we're talking about the powerful ones from the sky. We don't know what that means. It could mean humans. It could mean Pleiadians. It could mean reptilians. It could mean, you know, draconians. It could mean cat lyrans. It could mean things you can't imagine. It could even be us from a precursor civilization. It could be anything exactly, Patchy. It could be gods from interdimensional space and time. It could be all these things. So this is one of the reasons why I've taken such a step backwards, because I realized I was doing the very thing that I can't stand people are doing, which is speaking in a dogmatic, objective way about what it is when they don't know. I'm not saying, oh, we should all be agnostic 100%, but you should take a page from the agnostic playbook and say, you know what, I don't really know. I have some beliefs. I've heard some things. My spiritual teacher told me this ancient myth told me that. I see the correlations and I think it's like this. That is fine. If you want to say, I think that aliens and Anunnaki are the same thing, perfectly fine. I think that there's interdimensional beings involved too, perfectly fine. I think there's spiritual planes or mental realms or something, inner space, consciousness, whatever that is, fine. But when you come to me and say, well, there's heaven, and heaven is ruling the thing, and there's hell, and there's the infernal realms, and there's this, and this, I'm not saying yes or no, it's that, here's what I'm really saying. A lot of what people believe in the New Age and occult side of the world is very anthropomorphic or anthropogenic. It's very much only possible if you're limited to human culture. When you're looking up in the sky and you're thinking, what are the gods? If there are gods, what are they? If you're picturing a human, I got a problem with wholesale believing that. Can they appear human? Of course. But are they human? Or are they like, you know, god humanoids or something? That's probably an ET or something, right? Is that really a god, or is it just a being with godlike power compared to us? Like, are we gods compared to people living in the tropical rainforest that barely know how to make fire? Compared to them, sure. Yeah, we're godlike beings, but we're not actually gods compared to them. That's just a technological difference. Remember, any sufficiently advanced technology will appear to be magical, right? But then magic can be argued to be a form of technology. What's the difference? Is there a difference? Is there a difference between spirits and ETs? Aren't you spiritual? Aren't you a spiritual being? So then aren't ETs spiritual as well? And if that's the case, couldn't it be possible that what we think of as gods do exist and they can take human form? Of course. Imagine the possibilities is what I'm saying. So instead of saying agnostic, you just don't know, I'm saying open yourself to a bigger world of possibilities than just your dogmatic set of ideas that you've been conditioned to believe. Realize that human civilization, as we know it, especially from the spiritual, metaphysical, I shouldn't say metaphysical, that's pretty decent. From the spiritual understanding, you know, what we call our religions, those are cargo cults. We are living in late stage cargo cult reality. We are like those people, if you don't know what a cargo cult is, during the island hopping phase of World War II, when America was getting to attack Japan, you know, we're going through the South Pacific and we're hopping islands. Well, in particular, one island we were going to do nuclear testing on. So we transported the people who lived there to another nearby island so they wouldn't be hurt by this. And in the process, they got to know us for a little while and they turned us into their gods. And if you go to their island, they have little bamboo airplanes and shit that they worship. And it's insane. And they worked their own spiritual philosophy into this so that it's now a carrier, like an oil is a carrier for substances, like when you make say like salad dressing, but it's like a carrier for something. They've created a cargo cult religion as a carrier for their spiritual and historical understandings. And we've done the same thing. We have taken cargo cult mythology, we've changed it just a little bit to represent higher archetypes as well. Because of course those archetypes are in that as above, so below, fractal, holographic, you know, microcosm, macrocosm relationship. So of course, this is dipping into that theory that there's archetypal entities or archetypal consciousness, which is not even an entity at that point. There's archetypal consciousness, which becomes archetypal entities, and those entities have archetypal like different facets, and those eventually become personified beings. That is one theory of how you get from the non-dual source to individuated beings, is that you have the absolute archetype, and that is so Brahman is an archetype. What you think of as Brahman is an archetype. You're confused. Don't confuse the archetype for the reality. The reality is not the concept. So the archetypal concept of Brahman is a reflection of the absolute true reality of Brahman. So you have Brahman, the truth, and then you have its reflection. You have the source and its reflection, one and one. And you get your Fibonacci sequence going. So you have Brahman and you have its reflection, which is its mental picture of itself. That's the first archetype, the highest archetype, the monad, the one, the Brahman, the Atman. That's the absolute highest archetype. Within that archetype are an infinite number, beyond infinite. Because it's not, it is so infinite, it's also limited. Because it's not limited to limitlessness. It's so unlimited, it can be both limited and unlimited at the same time. So you have an unlimited number of limited aspects of that infinite thing. You can even have an absolute personified deity, a Yahweh, if you will, an Ishvara, if you will. You can have an absolute mind that is somehow so transcended you can't imagine it, and it is like a deity. But is it good or bad? Is that the demiurge? Is the demiurge good or bad? Depends on the person, I suppose, and their relationship with it. But it's not like you have to be in a good relationship with it to go to heaven or something. Maybe you just go to a certain kind of heaven, right? Again, we're going with just all possibilities here. I'm just throwing them at you, just to keep them on the table. Don't throw them out yet. So there's the absolute archetype, which within that archetype is an infinite number of lesser archetypes, or forms, if you will. And you have personality archetypes, and you have human archetypes, and so on. So if you follow the chain of archetypes up, DH Thorne belongs to a set of archetypal forms. And eventually, if you follow that pattern, you reach a specific archetype that DH Thorne best resonates with. Right? So you may have like several that fit me, but there's really only one category that DH Thorne would fit under. And there's only one ultimate category they all fit under, which is that Brahman archetype, that ultimate archetype. And that Brahman archetype is identical with the singularity archetype at the root of reality. The 0 point is the same as 0. It's but the 11th dimension is the same as the first. It's the same thing. So Brahman, this is all Brahman. And what you're seeing is just a perspective of Brahman, the source. You see how this is all fitting together? You see how this is a very neat puzzle, guys. And that's partially why it's been so hard, because it is really simple and it is easy. It's plain as the nose on your face. And that's why it seems impossible. Because you've been taught the opposite for so long that it doesn't make sense that it's this simple. It's supposed to be internal combustion, not 0 point energy. 0 point energy is too easy. It's too simple. It's too obvious. Can't be true. Absolutely not, Roberto. Disagree. Not a circle. No. A circle is a finite object. It doesn't really handle infinity. What makes it a good model of infinity is pi. It's the fact that a circle has an infinite number of points on its circumference. It's not that it's a circle. It's that there is an infinite number of points on its surface. Because there's an infinite number of points in any substance, because a point has no dimensionality. It doesn't take up space. A line this long has an infinite number of points in it, boys and girls. But this is why a singularity can have an infinite number of perspectives, because the further out you go from it, the more slight your angle of perception could be. So no, I don't believe a circle is a very good example of infinity. A circle is a good example of a repeating cycle. You could say that cycle itself repeats eternally, but that's not really infinite, because it's just a repeating pattern. That's not infinity. Thank you, be great anyway. The better model, and it's still not right, but the better model would be a swirly. It would be a toroidal, or what's the word I'm looking for? What, a sine wave? So what you see when you look at, I got to close my eyes and visualize this. When you're looking at an ethereoscope and you're seeing, and they're showing you the wavelength of a radio wave, right? And it looks like it's just like a whoop, right? It looks like a heartbeat or something. It's just like something going like this. It's not something going up and down, silly. It's a circle doing this. An electromagnetic beam is not something going woo, woo. It's something going near, near. It's a spiral. It's a spiral. And that's how you get your scalar wave. Because there's something that is instantly moving along with, see, it's so juicy. When you start diving into this stuff, it's so juicy. You start to realize, again, you're being lied to just right in your face. All right, let me go back to the chat here. I'm going to start up at the top. And just to let you guys know, I'm only going to go for about another 40 minutes. I really got to be hard on my limit tonight, because I really just... Cool. I really have to like watch out for these super long streams. I'm still, you guys might notice I'm still a little scatterbrained. I'm still kind of coming back to my normal self. There's still a lot of stress going on in my life. Like, still having a lot of things happening, a lot of karmic rebooting, a lot of karmic resetting, a lot of things that just weren't being taken care of in our lives are suddenly just going, hey, you better take care of this. And that's just the way it is, especially when you hit a certain age. But, you know, we're having certain issues. So it's kind of got me a little distracted. So, all right, let's see here. We've got Joffrey says, hello. What's up, Joffrey? Hopefully you're still here. BW Shepard says, evening, everyone. What's up, BW Shepard? Excuse me. Star Ruby Corsi says, hello, everyone, or hey, everyone. Roberto Bellotti says, hey, what's up? What's up, Roberto? Good comments as always. BW Shepard, Best. Dan Best, what's up, Dan Best? It's been a minute. Slim Lewis, what's up, Slim? Good to see you as always. He says, what's up? Solstice today, full moon tomorrow. You got that right. You got that right. CJ says, watching on YouTube because Rumble is being a hoe. Yeah. You know, I'm still a fan of Rumble. They've definitely improved things, but I get it. Okay. Slim Lewis brings up, yes, but supposedly 1 × 1 = 1. So I want to revisit Terrence Howard at some point. So while I definitely recommend everybody watch that Joe Rogan special, and I definitely recommend that people give Howard's ideas a moment of consideration, the more you deep dive that stuff, the more you realize he's kind of a hack. He's kind of a there's a guy that I'm friends with on Facebook who knows way more about some of these subjects than I do. You know, like my forte is non-duality and fundamental metaphysics, mysticism. His is more of an updated modern. He's into Tesla and etherism and all that. He's really good on Facebook. Alexander Ham, I think that's his name. Alexander Ham. That sounds right. He's really good about this. And he did a very good job of exposing the problems with Terrence Howard. And Terrence Howard is, according to him, and I see what he means. He's a dishonest, disingenuous character who takes credit for the work of people that are not him. And he lays it all out like he came up with it. And part of the problem is some of this stuff is in the public domain, so he does get to take credit for it. He can take credit for it because it's stuff that has been debunked and abandoned on the side of the road by mainstream academia, and nobody picked it up. It's not patented. It doesn't belong to anybody. So he can just be like, hey, this is my idea because I took these old ideas and I made them mine. Like you have Walter Russell, you have he uses their information, uses their ideas. And so Terrence Howard, while I think he's fine for a normie level abstraction of getting some of the ideas, I don't trust him as far as I could throw him at the moment because I've seen the evidence and I do believe he is a rip-off artist. I do. I would prefer you go watch Theoria Apophasis by comparison. Go watch him. He's a nutcase and I love him. I would love to befriend that guy. He and I have so many similar, unfortunately similar, like we'd probably fight a lot because we probably have too much in common in terms of like certain mentality. Like, you know, you're all stupid. We both love that. We both think very highly of our intelligence according to the character we play on our content generation platform. But if you ever met us in private, you'd be like, wow, this guy's pretty down to earth and he talks a big game. But if you ever listen to him, really, he's actually kind of a teddy bear. He doesn't really think that way. It's sort of an act, but it's not an act like, you know, oh, today I'm going to be an arrogant asshole. It's more like an act like, I know this will keep people at bay. I'll act this way a little bit. This way people will be like, oh, fuck this guy. You know, whatever. But, no, I love Ken Wheeler. I love Theoria Apophasis. I love people in his spectrum and I'm learning about more people all the time. You know, so just beware. Not all of these guys coming up with these things are fully white hat or whatever. They might think they are, but they might be being manipulated by other people too, you know, and they're not all correct. But I think that to ignore people like Terrence Howard and say that he's just wrong, that's not fair either because he's basing his work on things that do have academic bite. They may be completely true. Right? They may be based in the truth. Like I'm a big fan of what he was showing with the, you know, expansion and contraction of the ether creating the particles, because that's how I think of it, is that what we call physical material is just the ether. It's just a standing wave in the ether in a certain dimension. So if you're experiencing the ether from a certain dimensional perspective, you know, which 3 dimensions are we watching? Because theoretically, there could be an infinite number of dimensions of physical space. So maybe we're just watching a specific trinary set of dimensions. And one of the ones we think of as time. But it's not. It's just another direction you can go. It's just another coordinate relationship dimension. It's just another set, if you will, in mathematics. It's just another numerical set. So an infinity of infinities, an infinite set layered on infinite sets that all have the same source and the same destination. There's your toroidal field. There's your source. There's your boom. You got the whole thing. So which 3 dimensions do we see? Do we all see the same 3? Does every entity in the universe, or is there 4 spatial dimensions somewhere? Can you get a hypercube, or is that just a picture of time in 4 dimensions? See what I'm saying? This is why everything, you got to start doing deeper dives. You can't just go with, well, the quantum Wu experiment says that if I think really hard, I can get what I want. I can make the universe change to conform to my will. No, you dum-dum. You are down here. That's what it looks like. But in the absolute sense, all of that exists simultaneously. Learn. If you can't get your head out of modern mundane science, just listen to Einstein. He made it very clear that according to relativity, you travel far enough in a direction, you can see back in time, and that's your now moment. So for example, if I travel 100 million light years that way, and I turn around and I look back at Earth with a perfect telescope, my now moment would be 100 million years in the past. I could see 100 million years ago. For me, that's now. And this is why Einstein even said in a letter, I believe it was, to somebody, that don't feel bad about your dead spouse or whatever because they still exist. And this is why. Wild to think about, but that's how it is. So this idea that you can causally change things, all right, that Einstein's, what I just told you about Einstein alone disproves time itself as a moving thing. That alone shows that what we think of as time is an illusion. Just by itself, it shows that. Because if that was possible, if what he says is true, that if you travel far enough in that direction and then look back, at that point, you've just proven that time is an emergent artifact. It is something that is a consequence, not of a changing of reality, but a shifting of perspective of reality. What do you think 4D consciousness is? So all of you guys who are into this new age stuff, what do you think 4D consciousness? Oh, it's love. It's universal love. 4D consciousness is the recognition that time is not something that moves. It's you who move through time. And what are you? Okay, so maybe you don't move through time. Your perspective of yourself is shifting in a temporal dimension. 4-dimensional consciousness. So when you reach 4D consciousness, it's a realization, not just a I wonder if. I mean, it's a vivid recognition that time is an illusion, that you're not traveling through time, that you're scanning a dimension you call time, and this changing thing is the emergent artifact of that. That's 4D. It's very linear, but it's 4D. 3D consciousness is there's just this physical thing and time is happening to it. That's 3D. 3D consciousness is we have a physical world and things are happening. Time is just like an energy or something. It's a wave or something that's making reality move. That's not what it is. 4D consciousness is realizing time is a dimension. It's dimensional, and that reality doesn't travel through time. My body is not traveling through time. My perception is traveling as a perspective through time, what we call time. There you go. You just, by the way, you just activated your 4D consciousness if that clicked for you. If that is vividly understood by you, you just upgraded to 4D consciousness. You're welcome. You're done. So what's 5D consciousness? Recognizing you have a choice of timeline. Every single moment you can choose a different path in the temporal dimension. 5D consciousness is absolute free will. It's absolute freedom. It's nothing to do with, I have expanded myself. I am a chosen one. I now love the universe. I'm so special. Fuck that chosen one shit. In fact, I was going to do a video taking a giant... Have you guys been watching these videos about, like, the chosen one? Oh, the chosen one. If you are the chosen one. It's always these AI-generated videos. The chosen one is an outcast, and they're always... all it does is appeal to it appeals to weaklings. People who need to be told that they're special. You're so special. You're a chosen one. That's why nobody likes you. You're a chosen one. That doesn't mean that there aren't consequences that can give you a love and light mentality. When you realize what you are, because you have to know what you are to understand 4D, 5D, and so on consciousness. You can comprehend it, by the way, without knowing it. In other words, you can comprehend the concept without actually vividly knowing the concept. You can be like, hey, there's this idea that reality is umpteenth dimensions, and you can have that. That's easy. But to actually know that that is true, that's when you make the shift from 3D to 4D to 5D consciousness. When you fully shift to 5D consciousness, there is a click that generally occurs which builds this compassionate mindset, because you now realize that the only thing you're hurting with your choices is ultimately you, no matter how you slice the equation, no matter how you balance this quadratic equation of possibility, you are ultimately only hurting yourself with your choices, because there's no one else to hurt. If I pull out a gun right now and aim and bow, I didn't kill anybody. All right, calm down, that I should still go to jail, right? What has happened is I have chosen to witness a temporal dimension in which that manifestation of the absolute appears to die. But that's not what it is. I haven't sent a bullet anywhere. I've chosen to diverge. So I'm on this timeline. I'm going forward. I'm an innocent person who doesn't hurt people. You know what? I'm going to choose to witness the timeline where I'm a murderer. You've just accessed, you've just made a choice. And if you do that consciously, in other words, I am consciously choosing a different timeline, that's when you have achieved that. So what does it look like to have achieved fifth dimensional consciousness? It looks like I don't have to have a direct action to have an outcome that I want. I can choose a different future than the one that my personal trajectory must be on. Guys, I'm describing magic. Well, sorcery. I'm describing this process by which you do some ritual or some meditation or some bullshit, and next thing you know, you got your vast fortune that you were hoping to get. Your magic doesn't cause it. It allows you to aim your perspective so that you go to that temporal state. You move to that chapter of the story. And you do so gradually because you're not ready to make a jump there. You'd rather just change tracks and then work your way over there. So long as you're incarnate in this 3D field of being, it's really hard to make a sudden jump without breaking the whole thing. If you did that, you would suddenly reveal that this whole thing's bullshit, and you'd go insane. and you'd probably stay insane. But if you gradually acclimate to that realization, then it makes sense. But you still don't usually make a sudden jump. And if you do, it's a surreal experience, let me tell you. You'll go to bed one night, you'll wake up the next day, and reality seems wrong. Or right, but very different. It's happened to me a few times over the years, especially the last few years, where I've sort of, when I wake up tomorrow, it'll be a different world, you know? And it is. Call it bedtime magic. Set an intention before bedtime and see if the world conforms to your desires over time afterwards. Tomorrow I shall begin the timeline where I'm a millionaire. Well, it's got to start somewhere, right? Maybe buy a lotto ticket, get a new job. You weren't specific on when the millionaire was going to occur. Maybe it'll take a few lifetimes. But it will occur. It will be experienced. All right, let's see. Let's scroll down. What's up, Jasonius? Jasonius is here. He says, we are living in an inverted reality. Whatever the narrative is saying, have the solace that you know your own truth is all that matters. And it's probably a better truth in a lot of cases. The problem, though, is, and you're right about that to I think a large degree. I think more people need to start standing in their truth, but in a non-dogmatic way. What I mean by that is you need to have your own ideas that are subject to change based on new evidence. But you need to stop conforming to what society says. You need to start conforming to what your personal perspective is, and then validate it, check it, test it, truth test it. Don't just believe the earth is flat because you saw some TikToks. Go challenge that belief. Don't believe the earth is round just because you saw some rebuttals to those TikToks. Challenge those beliefs. Do as much as you can to prove one way or the other. And if you can't, recognize that there is a difference between true knowledge, belief, and faith. True knowledge, true gnosis, cannot be disputed. There is no level of evidence that would dispute true knowledge. That doesn't mean you can prove it to other people. Because true knowledge is not objective. It is ultimately subjective because it's only knowable through the subjective field. Objectivity is just an agreement you're making with another part of yourself to agree. We both saw the same thing. Did you, though? I don't know about that. You saw the same, you were inspired by the same source. Okay, I'll give you that. But did you see the same thing? From the same perspective, the same way? Never, no. So I'm not an objectivist. I'm also not a subjectivist, by the way. But I'm not an objectivist. I'm a non-dualist. So there's knowledge which you can know to the absolute degree. For example, you know you exist, and you know you exist because you know it. Because you're capable of knowing. You have the ability to know. You are knowing itself. Bingo, you know that. You can never, ever disprove that to someone. You can't prove it to anybody else. I can't prove to you that I know anything. Because for all you know, I'm just an imaginary figment of your mind. Well, I am. At least the form you see is. But what I am is not illusory. It's the same as what you are. So it can't be you can't disprove to someone that they exist. If they're even capable of comprehending the problem, they exist. If they're even aware of it, they exist. They are awareness itself, so of course they exist. Or I should say they are existence itself, so therefore they exist. What about belief? Well, belief is limited to the phenomenal world. Belief cannot extend to the absolute. That is to say, there is nothing to believe in at the highest level. The highest level, it's knowing. It's only knowing. There is no belief. The absolute is not something you can believe in. You cannot believe in Brahman Atman. You cannot do it. If you believe in Brahman Atman, you have lost the plot. You can suspect, you can puzzle, you can believe that there's a way to find out, but you cannot believe you can only know. People say, well, I do believe in Brahman. Fine, but that's not Brahman, what you're believing in. Think. Your belief is not Brahman. You're believing in an idea, not the absolute. The absolute can only be known. I know I'm acting a little crazy, but this is where it's, people like, Thorne, you love making semantical art. Dude, I'm a philosopher, okay? Semantics, semantics and pedantry are like, you know, the bread and butter of the territory, okay? You have to be able to split words. You have to figure out what words mean. That's why etymology is so important to people like me. Because I have to go, what did you mean thousands of years ago when you said everything is mind? Oh, you meant consciousness like I do. Got it. You're pointing at the same thing. Got it. Just a different way of saying it. Got it. So, you cannot believe in Brahman. You can only know Brahman. You cannot believe in Atman. You can only know Atman. But you can believe in baby pigeons. There's plenty of evidence that shows there must be baby pigeons. Even if you've never seen one, there's plenty of evidence for it. So, for example, I believe, I don't know, but I believe that if I take an object to the moon and drop it, I don't have to be there to see it. I believe it will fall. And it would be a safe bet because it's going to happen. Does that mean I know it's going to fall? Not unless I see it falling, I don't. If I see it happening, that's knowledge. Right? That's the difference. Knowledge is in the moment, intuitive, experiential realization, experience, awareness. That's knowing. Gnosis of the absolute is not the same thing as just having an idea about it. Gnosis of the absolute is pure gnosis itself. The absolute is gnosis. The fundamental nature of reality is gnosis. Gnosis would be a better word than consciousness if you want to know the truth. Or maybe not, because it should be knowing. I don't know if gnosis is... I'm not up on my Greek, so maybe it's not right. Because I think gnosis is a past. You've had gnosis or you're having gnosis. Isn't gnosis mean knowledge? Knowledge, but it doesn't translate right because I think it means active knowing. So gnosis is a good word for the absolute. The fundamental nature of the absolute is gnosis. How about that? It is knowing itself. So you can believe in baby pigeons because there's plenty of evidence. You can believe that gravity is happening on the moon because you can do tests and see the results later and you can prove it to yourself. Doesn't mean you know it, but you can. It's safe to believe with 100% certainty that if you drop a pebble on the moon, it should fall. Doesn't mean you know it will fall, but you could bet your whole ass life on it time and time again, never die. Until the one time it stops working. Then you have faith. Faith is you've never tested it, but you have been convinced, or you have never tested it, never seen any evidence for it, you've never seen it yourself, but it makes sense to you and it gives you peace and it's an effective way of living your life. You know, like I have faith in humanity that given the right information, humanity will pull itself out of this tailspin. I don't know that for a fact, and I have no reason to believe it, but I do have faith in it. Faith is just a belief you're choosing to have without the evidence. You're choosing to believe in spite of lack of evidence. It's your operation. Healthy faith isn't dogmatic. Healthy faith is open to new information. Healthy faith is, I don't know for sure that my car keys are in my pocket, but I usually put them in there, so I'm going to trust it. It's trusting an assumption is what faith is. Belief is taking that assumption to a point of being proven and assuming it's going to happen again. It's repeatability. Belief is repeatability. Faith is you haven't seen it yet, but you think it's there. And knowing is you've experienced it 100%. Knowing is it's happening right now. Okay, I have faith this will, all right, I believe this will fall because I've seen it happen before. I believe this will fall. I know it will fall. I'm knowing it's falling. Okay? So, going back to Jasonius's point, you're living in an inverted reality where you are taught to believe in what you have never, you've been taught to believe that which there is no proof, and you've been taught to deny that which there is eternal proof. You've been taught to disbelieve in the idea of mystical reality and consciousness and all this other shit. You've been taught that it's just an illusion. You're just dead matter bumping together in a way that just we call life. Oh, what a fucking ridiculous set of ideas that is. So you're right. We live in the upside down right now. We live in an inverted matrix that's designed to keep you enslaved. And you can easily get out of it. You just have to have that crack in the facade that shows you that that's what it is. And I guarantee you, over the next years, however long it's going to be, I personally think that the good part's going to be the next 5 to 8 years, maybe a little bit more, 5 to 9 years, something like that. 5 to 10, we'll say 5 to 10 years is going to be one of the most juiciest periods of your life imaginable. And after that, then it starts to normalize. This is the time of revelation and chaos, boys and girls. It's time to become a little agnostic about what you believe. It's time to open your minds and open your minds to possibilities, including possibilities that aren't validated by the system, but will eventually be. Just like 10 years ago, the idea of some Harvard professor saying that aliens are walking amongst us and live in the moon, or at least that is likely or possible. Woo! We are living in weird times. Well, that's going to keep accelerating. It's going to keep happening. Get used to it. It's time for you to stop trying to tell the world what it is and shut up and let it tell you. I don't mean the news. They're the beware assertive opinions right now. Myself being the exception. Beware the assertive opinion right now. Beware those people that sit behind the news desk or have their accolades and they have their diplomas. Beware. Not that they're all bad or lying, but beware is all I'm saying. Be skeptical. Have some skeptical mindset about what the system's telling you. And be ready to torpedo everything you've ever believed in your life. Except those things that you know. In other words, the only thing that's safe right now is what you know. What you believe is unsafe right now. I believe that my wife loves me. I know she loves me. I've experienced that love. I've felt it. I know it's there. I don't believe that what we're seeing in society right now is an organic, natural process. We're watching a show. The show is designed to wake you up to the truth because the powers that be, the Lites that used to rule the world, the old boss, has been flick by, and it was an inevitability. They tried to resist the tide that cannot be stopped, which is a clockwork mental mechanism which manifests reality the way it is. Higher powers are at play. They've got a design that cannot be. Look, there's free will, but you've already chosen this. You've chosen this reality. You've chosen this timeline. And if you're here, it's inevitable. Those Lites tried to change it, but they couldn't. They're stuck here with us. Some of them maybe went off in their timeline, but they couldn't hold us, is what I'm saying. They couldn't stop the fact that we are inevitably going to escape their clutches if we wake up. See, this idea that the elites couldn't make reality the way they want, they know that. They know that they self-sort into timelines. They know that. And they have a million ways to do it. But the thing is, they want you to go with them. Because that makes their manifested reality more real when they can bring more souls with them into the timelines that they want to see. You have a choice. You've had a choice this whole time. And if you're here with me watching the same reality that I am, and you don't see it the way I do, then you're going to self-sort into a different reality than I see. It's just that simple. Eventually, the person that I knew will be replaced by the person that sees similarly that I do. When I say the person, I mean the perceiver, the observer. That bit of consciousness which cannot be cut apart, but that bit of consciousness which is localized or focused upon this particular part of the multiverse. But those dark elites, they're done. They're dead, they're captured, they're Gitmoed, they're kicked off the planet, they're exiled, they've surrendered, whatever that means, they're done. A new sheriff is in town, and it's the one that was going to take over this whole time. And the hardest thing is going to be able to have the discernment in this period, because this isn't going to be the golden age yet. This is the early days of the golden age. And the early days of the golden age is a Wild West period, just like when they discovered America and they started branching out and exploring the territory. It was the Wild West. It's the same thing. We're about to embark on a journey of discovery that is bigger than anything, and it's going to be like the Wild West, which means there's going to be bumps. It's not going to be utopia. If you think by golden age, I mean utopia, not yet. We're not there yet. It's going to be the opening of it, the opening days. It's going to be a time of myth and legend for the future. We already are. But it really will be. It's going to be that time. You're going to have some little kid reading a book. You know, it was this year that humanity realized. That's coming. Your grandchildren will be reading that textbook. Instead of being depressed about this time, it's one thing if you're depressed because you like lost your dog or something. It's another thing to be depressed because, oh no, Biden's in charge and we're having inflation and we're going to have wars. That's the show. You're being made good. It's like someone said, let's take the old Illuminati plan and fix it and make it work right. Instead of using it to enslave people, let's go back to its original stated intention, which was to liberate mankind. Instead of communism, instead of the Marxists taking over, instead of the Zionist, Sabbatai Levy guys taking over, let's actually have the original intention, which is we guide humanity into the light of liberation and utopia and awakening, the golden age. It's happening. It's just going to take a while. You're living at that time in history where you get to plant the seeds that your future generations will realize are big, beautiful trees. You right now get to help make that happen. And it's going to start now, not after Trump's elected. Start now. Go out today. What do you think what I'm doing? What do you think? I've given up on my businesses for now. I don't care about writing books or having Patreon or all that shit. Fuck it. I don't care if I'm popular or not anymore. You're my little tribe. You guys listening right now, the regulars who keep coming back, you're my little tribe of friends. I'm not an influencer anymore. I'm just a guy that you listen to, that you get inspired by. My duty right now is to just keep doing this as best I can so I can learn to do it better. And your job is to listen to what I'm saying and distill out something that you needed and give that to others. And find other teachers that are better than me. There's plenty of them. And distill their teachings and give them out. I am a ripple in the pond, and I'm making more ripples. I'm like a pebble that was dropped. I am making more ripples, and so are you. Awaken humanity to greater consciousness. Pick something that you're good at that is in alignment with the truth, the absolute truth, and start making those waves so humanity wakes up. The faster you wake up humanity, the easier it's going to be. But at the same time, don't make it your job like, oh, I've got to fix it, because that's just suffering. Recognize that there is an operation going on by a vast consortium of agents, elements, countries, organizations, off-world, under the inner world, outer space, inner space, ether space. There's a consortium of forces that have decided that it's time to waken humanity up from its slumber. It's time. Enough is enough. Wake up, boys and girls. What is coming? It's like the end of Close Encounters. It's like the end of What Dreams May Come. It's like all of that mystery and majesty. It's coming. And you're not going to get the whole truth. You're not going to get all the answers, but you're going to be vindicated. Patchy, you're going to be vindicated. Be Great Anyway, you're going to be vindicated. Jasonius, you're going to be vindicated. CJ, you're going to be vindicated. Slim, you're all going to be vindicated on so many levels. Not everything, but certain things you're going to be able to stand up soon and be like, I fucking told you so. People like me who've been diving down these rabbit holes for years, there's coming a time, I don't know when, how soon, but soon, maybe this year, where this year at Thanksgiving, you're going to be able to put your foot down and be like, shut the fuck up, you whiny green-haired freaking snowflake that's been telling me that I'm a racist, bigot, Nazi for not. You're going to be able to put your foot down and say, shut the fuck up. You've been wrong this whole time. Go call me a Nazi in your own time, in your own cry closet, because it's not here. Fuck you. And the same thing's going to happen spiritually. There's going to come a point very soon, because if those aliens show up, and I believe they're gonna, and I mean really, I mean formally, I don't mean this soft disclosure weird shit. I mean, when they formally appear, even if they don't go, hello, we are from the planet such and so, and we're here to talk to you all. Even if it's so obvious because it's happening all over, or there's some big sighting or something you can't deny. However it happens, that's going to open up. Look, they may not talk to us yet openly. They may just show themselves in a way that we can't deny, like, hi, we're here, bye. In fact, I've heard people say that's what the Anunnaki do now, or the Pleiadians do now. They don't, when they have new contact, they just appear for a while. They get you used to the idea. Well, they've already been doing that, but they're going to make it more obvious for a while. And then maybe in our lifetimes, they'll say hello. Sorry about the noise. But once that happens, people are going to be like, we need to have a new conversation about this materialism shit, guys. You scientists said that they didn't exist. We just watch them telepathically connect to everybody and say, by the way, we're here, or whatever they're going to do. How dare you tell us they're not there? And once that happens, the Richard Dawkins of the world, who says there's no such thing as spirit and God, blah, 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 they're going to have a lot of explaining to do. They're going to have to shut up. They've been wrong. That's the good thing about when you have a dogmatic person, when they're proven wrong, you don't have to give them any respect anymore. This is why I warn you about dogmatism, because when you're wrong, you're worse than wrong. Someone who is not dogmatic but wrong, they're not making a moral failing. If you're dogmatically wrong, that's when it's a moral failing. The moral failing is the dogmatism. It's not that you're right or wrong, it's the dogmatic attitude. That's the moral failing. And I mean moral in the more ambiguous sense, not like, oh, Christian morality or something. You know, we like to make it a moral failing when someone's wrong. It's only a moral failing when they're wrong in a dogmatic way. When they're trying to assert and dominate beliefs, and they're trying to tell you this is the only way, and they refuse, that's when it's a moral failing. All right, let me get to these supers. So I got to get down to the end of the time. Patchy says, hey, brother, $2. What's up? Thank you. He says, for $5, a little bit of skepticism, there you go, brother, is good. However, most people within the science community take it too far. That's called pseudo-skepticism. It's being in denial. People confuse being in denial with skepticism. A good scientist never fully closes the door on any idea, no matter how far out or wrong it sounds. They at least leave the door unlocked so that if that door knocks, they can open it again. You never close the idea on any idea. You never close that door. When you're dealing with beliefs, let me preface that. When you're dealing with beliefs, because beliefs always require at least one assumption somewhere. So when you're working with beliefs, always leave that door unlocked or open a crack. When you're dealing with knowledge, there's no harm in keeping the door open a crack because you know it's never going to be threatened. Listen to me. You can bombard me with every argument that is known to man against non-duality, and it will never, ever threaten my knowledge of it. It will never, ever, ever knock me out of that knowing. The only way you're going to knock me out of that is to give me some kind of amnesia that transcends my ability to break through. And that's going to only be temporary too. You can only temporarily confuse me. You will never, ever convince me. Because non-duality is not a belief. It is knowing. It is something you know. So you can't argue someone out of a knowledge. You can't do it. Isn't that great? So that means you get to have the most open mind possible and yet still have a foundation which is unshakable. That is absolutely true. So anything that's belief oriented, you must have a skeptical, or I should say, a falsifiable position. Your position in the belief system you have must always be falsifiable, meaning you can always have your mind changed. Right now, I believe there are aliens. I believe there are interdimensional beings. I believe that there are ethereal beings and astral, spiritual, mental beings. I believe in all of that. Do I believe in specific beings? Do I believe that there is a being that is specifically Lucifer, that is exactly like the biblical account? Well, if I believe in multiple dimensions, then I must believe in the possibility that there is a multiverse out there that has a fallen angel being residing over that planet. It must be real somewhere in the multiverse. I am able to believe in it, but I do not believe in this particular paradigm and timeline of reality that there was a Lucifer in a heaven that fell, that landed on earth. And no, I think that's cargo cult mythology. I think that we're talking about archetypes that are conflated for specific beings, and those specific beings are cargo cult history lessons about something that happened on this planet a long time ago between aliens or ethereal beings, perhaps. But the literal version of the Bible or the Book of Enoch or any of these sources for these angels and fallen demons and all that, I believe that that's cargo cult mythology. That doesn't mean that they're not ethereal beings involved or that they don't exist. I'm saying the specificity. Lucifer is an angel with 6 wings because he's a seraphim and he fell and you don't confuse the symbolism for the reality. Just like you shouldn't confuse the symbolism of this physicality for the reality. This is all, I had a conversation last week about this reality, is it made of symbols? No. Symbols are emergent out of your experience of this, but you don't confuse those symbols for reality. They are symbolic of reality. They symbolize reality. They give you a representation of reality. So you must be skeptical of anyone who tells you in the absolute sense that those symbols are absolute objective facts, because we don't even know what each other's symbols look like to each other. We just know that we each have our own symbols that represent those things. So a little bit of skepticism, in other words, a falsifiable position, is the right place to be. Keep an open mind. And you can, of course, say, I don't believe it. But that doesn't mean your mind is closed to the possibility that you're wrong. Right? Right. It's not semantics. It's how they've confused you. They've confused you by telling you that what I'm saying is an argument from semantics. No, it's not. Change the language and the semantics will change. In the English language, when I'm telling you this is the better way of seeing it. It sounds like a semantical argument, but it's not. All right, Patchy dropped another 5. He says, I feel like most people are stuck in 3D consciousness, and when you were explaining 4D made perfect sense to me. Exactly. I mean, I was a little harsh on the New Age 4D, 5D thing because they're not wrong. It's just fundamentally they're wrong. It's not 4D is suddenly love and light or anything like that. It's that 4D, to grasp 4D, then 5D, and so on, requires an awakening of higher reality. And that awakening, one of the side effects is recognizing everything is the ultimate self, the ultimate being. And so therefore, to do harm to others, while it may be an illusory world we're in, you're fundamentally hurting the absolute self, which you are a part. Why would you do that? Now, there's reasons to do that sometimes, by the way. You got cancer in your hand, cut your hand off. It sounds like you're hurting your hand, but you're saving the body. That's a valid thinking, a valid way to look at it. But does that mean that you should cause suffering? You should cause suffering? I don't know. You might have an argument for why. But here, the interesting thing that happens is when you awaken to that non-dual truth, it's not a matter of argument whether you should or shouldn't do something. It's a matter of compassionate, and it's not a feeling in the experiential sense, but it is a feeling, it's a sensation. It's the sense of compassion. The sense of compassion is a modality of sensing. Compassion is not a feeling, it's a modality of feeling. If there is compassion, if you are tuned into the compassionate modality, you will feel things like empathy differently. You will look at an innocent and say, I wouldn't want to hurt them because I would feel like I'm hurting myself. Get it? Having compassion means having an awareness of the compassionate modality. Doesn't mean you have to be selfless or self-full or anything like that. It's that you're aware that fundamentally we're all the same self. We're all the same Brahman Atman. We're all the same absolute. We're all the same gnosis, the same knowing. And when that triggers, when that is realized, it triggers a sense of compassion. The sensing of compassion, it triggers a sense of, and it's unspeakable, but it's intuitive. I don't want to hurt somebody because I'm ultimately hurting a form of me. But there are times when it is necessary. There's the nuance. And then Patchy went on to continue to say, and isn't that what ritual is, just symbolically jumping from one reality to another? And yes, Patchy, that's what I was saying. I'm not sure if you caught that part. Yes, a ritual is your leap of faith to jump to that other timeline. Boys and girls, that's what a leap of faith is. It's a ritual. It's a spell. It's a jar spell. It's a meditation. But when you do something with skin in the game, like a ritual, it gives you skin in the game. When you do a blood ritual, you got to give yourself a piercing. That's putting skin in the game. You're taking a leap of faith. Declaring to yourself, I am a great and powerful wizard and my will is manifesting. That's a great affirmative statement, right? That's a leap of faith to make that statement. And if you truly make that leap of faith, you will make the timeline shift that you're looking for. That's what a ritual is. It's a way to do that. And it's just one way. Do a jar spell. That's a leap of faith. So Slim Lewis for $10 says, I love your perspective on timelines. So there are some where all hell is going to break loose in the next decade and others where it won't. Do we have a choice, free will? Of course you do. You just did. All right. Here's the understanding that has been impressed upon me that I believe. I believe currently, based on evidence that I've seen from all different kinds of people and sources, mystics, other weirdos like me that are just nobodies that have had awakenings. By the way, have you noticed how much more awakening there is going on? It seems like everybody's going, wait a minute, non-duality, consciousness, this kind of makes sense. It's like the wool's being pulled over their, the scales are being pulled off their eyes. Everybody's waking up left and right. In fact, the ones that aren't are the ones that everybody's like fed up with. At some point, the extremist people are going to just go away because they won't be able to withstand what's coming. The people who have awoken, who have this, I hate to say it, a balanced love and light. Look, I got famous for the left-hand path, but I used the left-hand path to balance myself, become an integrated being, and now I'm able to be properly love and light. Not the love and light, the goody two-shoes asshole that's all, no. Let me borrow that Chris Tucker. No. No. You know this, man. It's not that. No. The true love and light is that hands-off compassion, recognizing the self in all things and acting accordingly. Sometimes that means you do what society would say is wrong or evil. It doesn't make you bad or good. Love and light is not about outward expression. It's about a relationship you have to the absolute self, which is in all things. It's a relationship. It's not a set of moral codes. Love and light is going, I recognize that everything is the illumination of consciousness, illuminated unto itself. And I love this because that's what I am. It's perfect love. It's not passion love. It's not doormat love. You don't become a doormat when you love the universe. You don't say, oh, I'm love and light, so you can abuse me all you want. No. True love and light is an integrated path where the left and the right hand path are transcended. They're utilized one at a time or together. So I teach the left-hand path. I teach through the left-hand path, but the goal is to awaken to that unified, integrated perspective of the absolute self in all things. Once you get that, everything else is child's play. So yes, Slim, according to my understanding and my belief system, what I have understood, what I've come to understand is that what we're in right now, and it's not the only one, and it's not like there's only one nexus. We are in a nexus, a timeline nexus. Think of it like the eye of a needle through which a whole bunch of different timeline threads are threaded through. This is why you have all these Mandela effect people showing up with different past memories that don't make sense. You even have examples of evidence where it could have been true. Because all of these different timelines are visible from this point. This nexus point is where a whole bunch of timelines for a brief period become one timeline. They're all merged together. This is why you have the extreme Christian timeline, the extreme New World Order timeline, the extreme New Age timeline, the extreme, all of them are conversed here. They're all converged here. You are literally, it's a whole, it's like, imagine a subway or metro system where you have a central station where they all show up. Like in New York, we have Penn Station. Right now, in the temporal matrix, we are in a Penn Station where a whole bunch of trains have pulled in. We've all gotten off and we're all exploring the possibilities, and you are self-sorting. And if you are not tuned into the possibilities and you don't have this higher awakening, someone else is going to influence that sorting. You still ultimately choose for yourself, Slim. No one can choose for you. But they can limit your awareness of the timeline possibilities in front of you so that you only end up choosing between a very limited number. If you had a higher realization or awareness of all the timelines that are accessible from here, you could go to any of them. This is why if you're not careful, you can accidentally slip into one you don't want right now. Because right now, you can do spells, you can do rituals, you can do belief, affirmative action, law of attraction, whatever your method is, prayer. You can do all of that. And still, like you can enter the right timeline slot and then shift back to the wrong one. So yes, Slim, you absolutely can still choose, although the window of opportunity is closing. Every moment that goes by, because even if you're fifth dimensional, you're still doing a linear path. Time still manifests linearly for you. You haven't transcended enough to be able to go backwards in that timeline matrix. That's sixth dimension, by the way. The sixth dimension allows you not to just simply change timeline paths, but to convert. So let's pretend, as a model, I'm going to give you guys the finger, I don't mean it. Right now, if you're a 3D consciousness person, time looks like this for you. Bingo, here's reality, right? If you're a 4D consciousness person, you're like this. You realize you can go up and down, like not up and down, but you realize that time is not changing. Consciousness is moving in this one dimension. When you get your fifth dimensional consciousness, you realize I've got all these other options. So I can continue going straight, or I can go this way, or this way, or this way, or this way. Sixth dimensional consciousness is realizing you can do this. And you can connect. You can fold through into other ones that are totally disconnected that includes timelines that look like the past. By the way, they are not the past, they just look like it. If you get into a time machine, a real one, right now, and you go into what you call the past, it's not the past, it's your future. So you can, trust me on this, you absolutely can go into, you can take a fork in the timeline road, end up in a timeline that looks exactly like 1922, murder your great-grandfather before he has your grandfather, and still be born because it's a different timeline. It's just a past tense version of yours. But it's not the one you're on because that's still behind you. It's nuts to think about, but that's true. So having a six-dimensional understanding means you can have the impression like you're going backwards or forwards in time. It's non-linear. Fourth dimensional time is linear. Fifth dimensional time is linear. Sixth dimensional time is non-linear. Whew. Isn't that wild? Look, I am fully acclimated to 4D consciousness. I'm becoming more attuned to 5D consciousness because I am learning to shift consciously through this temporal matrix. The fact that I'm even able to do it, you could say I've already hit 5D. But the fact that I can't do it reliably means I'm in 5D, but I haven't settled there. And I don't think that's the requirement. I think to be considered in 5D consciousness is like to be considered to have awakened to 5D, like you've made the shift to 5D, is just having that rudimentary ability to occasionally change which timeline you see. But you got to be conscious that you're doing it. All right, I think I caught all the super chats. Let me do, if I did, I will end in a minute. Yeah, that was the last super chat I had on my board. All right. Roberto. He says, okay, you convinced me. I'm going to do ayahuasca. All right. I don't know if you're talking to me or one of the people in the chat, but either way, that's a funny thing. That's a funny thing to tune back into the chat for. Assuming you're talking to me, that's extra funny. And I like what you said up above, Roberto. You said boundary is the illusion. Bingo. Absolutely correct. That's a quote you could tattoo on your forehead, bro. That's a great universal truth. All right, so I'm just going to run through the last of these comments because hey, Atropa, what's up, sweetheart? I didn't see you here. What's going on? Odo's here. Man, I wish I wasn't going to end it soon. I just don't have it in me to keep going tonight. I'm trying to stick to 2 hours for a little while because, yeah, Tropa, you're right. I think 90% of people or more are still in 3D. This whole shift from 3D to 4D to 5D, people are telling you it's going to happen quick and suddenly. No, for you, it may happen quick and suddenly, yes. For the individual, it's a sudden shift. But for the planet, we're talking generations. Let me be clear. This whole 3D to 5D, I mean, I didn't even really buy into that concept because I didn't know what it was. I had my own idea of what was going on that turns out is very similar. So once again, I have my own ideas and it turns out to resonate with what a lot of other people are waking up to. So no, the idea that the planet is going to shift from 3D to 4D to 5D is bullshit. It's going to look like it for you, though, because you're going to be joining the timeline. You're going to be joining the 4th D and 5th D people. See, this is the thing. You got to... This is why a lot of people have a hard time relating, and I have a hard time relating to them, because my mind is not a linear system like yours is. I've realized this over the years. My mind is not linear the way everybody else's is. My mind is more multidimensional than a one-track thought. Because I don't think like you do. My mind is mostly silent unless I'm trying to articulate an idea to communicate it. I just know stuff. And then I find the words for it. So I'm not limited with linear A plus B equals C and blah, 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 blah. That is a tool that I use when I need it, but that's not what I need most of the time. Most of the time, I just intuitively blurt out something that's true. And I don't know where it comes from because I'm channeling source. I'm channeling the higher self, the hidden self. I'm channeling the infinite. I'm channeling the truth in words that resonate so that you understand. So I don't think like you guys do. That's not to say I never do. I'm saying, so maybe I'm exaggerating it wrong. I'm saying it wrong. It's hard to say what I'm saying because it's not like I think through things A, B, C, D, E. It's literally just, oh, and then I explain it A, B, C, D, E. I'm constantly having profound eureka realizations that just appear in my mind fully formed. And they appear in an invisible way. I wish I could explain this to you guys. And it's because I've spent so much time transcending thoughts. I've spent so much time over my life since I was a little kid. It's like I figured out meditation when I was 12 years old without any real instruction. Real meditation, no mind, being present. And I didn't realize that it was a skill or a gift that I had until much later when I started doing it again on purpose. Because for a while I gave it up. I better think a lot. And so I'd think a lot. And then just one day I was like, you used to just not think and you used to do a lot better in life. You weren't so upset about things. You were just in the moment and you had better intuitive ideas. You used to be able to read people better. What happened? Oh, I was overthinking. I wasn't listening. I was projecting. So I quieted my mind and it wasn't hard. And from that day forward, just gnosis became everything. So because I don't think linearly to the same degree most people do, jumping to that 4 and 5D and 6D and 7D consciousness is not as hard for me, especially 4 and 5. 6 to me feels wrong. I know it's true, like intellectually, it's like, yeah, that's probably true, but I can't put myself in it because to me, the future is the future, the past, I can't picture, short of getting in a UFO and it's like a time machine, how to do that. But I can make choices consciously that change my trajectory through the timelines. I know I can do that. I know you can do that. You do it all the time. You just don't realize it. So what does it mean? Here is what the 4 to 5D, 3D to 5D shift really means. You are not shifting into 4D or 5D. Your consciousness is becoming aware of that fact. Your consciousness, your awareness is expanding. And it's expanding to include this possibility. First as a possibility, then as an assumption, then as something you've done. I know I've done timeline shift. I know I have. I don't believe I have. I know I have, but I don't know if I've shifted from one to the other, but I know that every moment I am shifting from one to the other. Isn't that wild? So I can't say for sure 3 years ago I was in the dystopia timeline and now I'm in the positive one. But my perception is I do know that 3 years ago I saw no positive outcome and now I do. And I remember the moments that the shift felt like it happened. I remember I wake up and everything's different. I remember the moments where speaking to someone, suddenly they saw it. It was like I joined a different collective of souls to the point where I created a little ritual to make sure that my beloved wife and family would stick with me through this. Their consciousness, their souls would stay with me, that I wouldn't lose them in case they weren't following me anymore. That's right. I made spiritual tethers to people I care about that I can go, shh, come back. Don't lose me if you don't want to. Unless you want to find a different version of me. I don't know if it's working or not. I like to think it is. I even have a friend who I told 2 years ago, listen, if you're here listening to me right now, you have the option to join me on this timeline that I know I'm in, but you could shift to the wrong one again. And I said, in about a year or so, you're going to be on board with what I'm saying, but I don't know if it's going to be the person I'm talking to now who's on board with it, meaning the soul. I don't know. I still don't know. The person I was talking to 2 years ago and said, in about a year or two, you're going to start seeing what I see. But I don't know if it's you who's going to see it or someone like you that I call you. And here's the thing. That's so hard to explain to somebody. Like I said, I can't relate to normal people the same way, and they can't relate to me because my mind is not linear anymore like everybody else's. I'm looking at things and going, yes, that's why I called myself the Rick Sanchez of magic 5 years ago, because I was starting to, or 3 years ago, I was starting to crack this code. I was starting to get it. And I'm like, shit, I just don't need a portal gun. I use rituals instead. I'm the Rick Sanchez of magic, motherfucker. I'll own that shit all day long. I even act like him in a lot of ways. I love it. Good. I'm the Rick Sanchez of fucking magic. Cool. But I mean that. I don't think like the average person does anymore. Maybe it's the weed. Maybe it's Maybelline. But I don't think like most people do anymore. That doesn't mean I never do. It just means as a rule, as a habit, I don't think the way other people do. I'm a little bit more unpredictable for that reason. But at the same time, people who know me, they can pretty much predict me because there's a set of principles that I live by. I've chosen to live by. So you can predict me, but you can't predict what I'm going to think. You can't predict how I'm going to answer you. I've had people try. I'm very hard to predict. Readers can feel me, but they have a hard time predicting me. Like I said, I don't think the same way you guys do. And I think a lot of you guys over the next few years are going to start learning to think in the abstract, non-linear, hyperdimensional ways that I do. And I wonder how much further I might go. I'm satisfied with where I am, though. If you told me, hey, you're going to hit 5D and that's it for this lifetime, I'm good with that, man. 5D consciousness is badass. Because it means that there are options available to you that you don't realize. And you may not be able to shift effortlessly between them all. You may still feel limitations, but the guardrails are taken off. The bumpers are off on the bowling alley, which makes it more dangerous, but also more liberating. You get more validation when you're right. You see a bigger world every moment of every night, of every day, of every... And you realize that every moment is a choice that the hidden or higher self has made. You're making this choice. You're just not always aware of it. And I'm going to end on this note. Let's go back to the analogy of a dream, because the dreaming analogy is a very good one. Reality is different types of dreaming. When you go to sleep at night, you have a personal dream. It is a dream that is limited only to your persona's ability to shape the dream, to choose. You're totally free, but you don't have any, you're not in any cooperative state with anybody else. Not really. When you're in this material dream, these other beings around you, you're in a shared experience. It's a shared dream. When you pass away, I believe, without any proof, it's like a faith belief, but it's based on the evidence of researching near-death experiences and all that. That is another type of dream. It's a bigger dream. In that dream, you are no longer limited by time or space the same way. And the higher order that dream is, the less time and space are a factor. There is no now moment in heaven, shall we say. That is to say, there is no, it is 1942 in heaven. It's not 2024 in heaven. In heaven, and I'm using heaven as like the astral or whatever, in the afterlife. I'm using that because what other word should I use? It's not 2024 in the afterlife. 2024 is something you can experience in the afterlife, but it is not 2024 in the afterlife. Go watch the movie What Dreams May Come. I suspect that those of us who don't immediately reincarnate, and I believe that you usually only immediately reincarnate or very nearly if you have a very materialistic mind. If you have been really indoctrinated into a materialistic, you can't imagine anything bigger than this, chances are when you die, when your body dies, you might have an out-of-body experience, but you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, and you might, I don't like this, and then you get reborn. I don't know how it happens, if it's traumatizing or not. It must have happened to me last time because I have no memory of anything before. Or, like the other mythologies say, you drink from the river Lethe, to be immortal means it requires you forget your other mortal lifetimes and what comes before and after. It's literally a focus only on this. That's also a valid explanation. I don't know, but I have certain beliefs and faiths that I think are true. In the model of reality that I have that's based on that non-dual foundation that I know, it doesn't make any sense for it not to be that way. Because every moment of your life is that way. Every moment is a new dreaming. It's a new shift in the dream. It's a changing of the dream. When you go to sleep, different kind of dream. When you wake up, it's a different kind of dream. Even scientists have to admit this. Your experience of daily life is a kind of dream. So death would just be another kind of dream. And so on. And it probably goes up to infinity. That's why you have Hinduism where they tell you have all these lokas and you have all the, and eventually you get to such a pure realm where it's minds, but they're not personified. They're just perfect flowing conscious streams of just mind with no I am D.H. Thorne thinking. No, it's just beautiful thinking, beautiful experience, pure. Without any personal ego standing in the way of it. And that's not a goal, that's an option. If you have it in mind that the goal is nirvana, meaning to escape this material world, you've lost the plot already. True liberation is to love whatever state you're in. You want to get to that 4D, 5D state quick? Then love the 3D state just as much as the others. Be like, hey, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. I love this. I love what I'm seeing. And then just live your fucking life. And you will be living in 5D without even knowing. You don't have to know you're in 5D. All right, let me finish out here. I keep saying that. And I keep saying, oh, I got it. Oh, Patchy, would you give me another one? Patchy says, I feel like I'm heading into the timeline where people like us will be proven right. And we're also going to be proven wrong too, Patchy. But I think we're going to be more right than we realize. Because we're just going to shift into the one where we're right. Yes, Patchy, point meditation. Point meditation is the most powerful form of, it's one of the most powerful meditations there is. If you can really zero in on a point, you can zero in on the 0 point. You go through the keyhole and you boing, and it just becomes infinity. It's like going into a black hole. And on the inside of that black hole is eternity. And it looks like nothing and like everything all at the same time. You don't even have to have your eyes closed and eyes open to do 1 point meditation. You can just pick a spot in your vision. I don't know, when you close your eyes, I still see like a little static. Pick a little piece of static and just focus on it. Zoom right in on that fucker. Imagine you're flying towards something without moving. Imagine, like, look around your space or find a star in the sky. And imagine you're flying towards it forever. And it's just constantly getting closer and closer, but yet... And just zoom into that infinite point. At some point, you'll transit, bing, and you're just in it, and you're just in eternity. That's one way to do it. Good for you, Connor, and that means there's a good chance that's where you're ending up. But sometimes our higher self likes to bait and switch. See, it's not about what you want. It's not about what you think. It's about what your higher or hidden self really, really wants to do. It's that part of you that chooses before you're aware of the choice. You've got to become consciously aware of that part. Even if only intermittently. Going back to what I was saying, it's like a dream. Fifth dimensional consciousness is like lucid dreaming, where you realize you're dreaming and you can choose for how the dream manifests. But most of the time you let the dream run itself the way it wants. So when I have lucid dreams, I don't control everything. I don't sit there and go, the bird's going to flap its wings 55 times flying across the sky. No, I'm just aware of the fact that I am the one dreaming about the bird flying across the sky. And I get to say, now make the bird turn right. And it'll turn right. But then it'll continue doing like it would do if it was under its own control. So I don't have perfect control in a lucid dream. I have the ability to choose what the dream does or what it contains. Well, 5D consciousness is like that. You have a choice, even if it's only intermittent or only to make a choice in the moment. You're not making everything happen. You're letting the program run, but occasionally you're saying, tomorrow's going to be a good day. Start that small. You don't have to, try not to specify what that means. The easiest step into fifth dimensional awareness and the ability to shift with awareness is to be as broad and simple and rudimentary as possible. Focus on the most rudimentary thing. Tomorrow I will have a good day. Choose to have a good day tomorrow. If you can do that once, you can do it again, and you just keep practicing until it becomes the norm. Or tomorrow my friend will call me. Which one doesn't matter. One of my friends will call me. That's an easy one because there's a good chance someone will call me. Keep it easy and just it's the simplest way to do it. And if you have to, do a ritual with it. So don't try to cause a specific thing to happen. Don't try to experience a specific thing. Try to experience a category. That's dipping your baby toe into a skill, and you will develop it. All right, I'm going to take off. Hey, what's up, Shift? Shift Happens says, sup, DH. I'm closing for the night, Shift, but I appreciate you, brothers. Good to see you. I think you were here last week. I forget, but yes. Yes, Odo, like the Windows 95 flying through the strokes of the screensaver. Yes, exactly like that. Be the Windows 95 logo, my friend. You are the Windows 95 logo, Odo. Well done. All right, so I'm going to take off, and it's good to see you guys again. I should be here next week, but you know what? There's a 50-50 chance I won't be here. I got to tell you guys, next week's a little scary. There's some things that are going on that I may be busy Thursday. So I may not show up Thursday, or I might. So next week's about 50-50. You guys will know when we get there, but I won't know until sometime in the afternoon whether I'm going to do a stream on Thursday next week. If I don't, that means there's a good chance I'm having a real bad day. I'll just leave it at that. So until then, I love y'all. I hope to see you. If I see you, that means it's a good thing, probably. And from there on, everything gets pretty cool. So hang in there. I'll see you next week, guys. All right, bye. Where's the button? How do I turn this off? Where's the button? Well, there's one of them. I have to do 2 buttons now. Can you believe that? There's one. And goodbye, YouTube.